yoga asana, this is sometimes there's a tension or a struggle or some unconscious smuggling in of what's right or wrong based on this like medicalization, even in yoga asana, where the asana is only there to deal with certain maladies, whether it be maybe somebody has some connective tissue dysfunction or they have back pain. One of the things I've noticed in industry, if you will, of yoga asana is that there has been a scramble to really appeal to that medicalized model because it symbolizes a certain within our Western culture, a certain legitimacy, which is also reflective of what I struggle with this medicalization model, which is when everything has to justify itself through the lens of the medicalization, like there's a malady and you're going to fix the malady.
know,
It's a very narrow view of life, whereas I view and experience yoga as very broad across life.
mhm.
I imagine this is something that you've come across both in psychotherapy as well as with psychedelics. These like sort of the medicalization of both, where it's about there's a malady, you want to make sure that you can consistently get rid
Well,
of that malady. Again, not a bad idea, but I noticed like there's a lot of very much anchoring very tightly to this paradigm, and it washes away so much of the richness of the rest of what's there.
yeah. So if someone came to you maybe with that approach, well, I got this pain, I want to get rid of it, uh, with a narrow understanding of what yoga can do for them, then that's an opportunity
Hmm.
for them to come in to meet somebody who has a much broader and deeper and more spiritual, if I can say, view of life, and take them deeper into the what's available through the yoga. Now, maybe there's some people in the medical model who are working in medical situations, or don't have that uh, degree of understanding. Um, and it's not just the medical model. I mean, that's I think it's just larger than that. Our view of the world, that's at least the view that's been predominant, and I think is changing, of kind of a materialistic and looking at the physical and changing the physical and not seeing deeper than that. There's even with psychedelics now, there's an attempt by some private companies to create psychedelics that don't have a psychedelic effect. Literally, they're working on this now because they think that possibly there are changes in the neurons and in the brain and the connections in the brain, and you can do that. You can create that without creating a sense of oneness or a sense of or a deeper, like a microscopic looking into oneself and into the depth of the unconscious or consciousness, and they're trying to create that, thinking that um, that will be enough to have all the positive effects that psychedelics are now showing in research. And some people are pretty skeptical of that because they find that the depth of a mystical experience, when they measure uh, people who are taking psychedelics in research settings, that the depth of the mystical experience correlates very much with the degree that they transcend whatever diagnosis that they came in with. So we'll see what happens with that. This is a new field. Um, so there has been this tendency in our culture, not only and our medicine is a reflection of that. There was a time when homeopathy was the primary medicine in the U.S. or in England or in the Western society. it was much bigger than what we call allopathic or modern medicine. But because the substances that are used in homeopathy don't show they're so diluted that they seem to have no chemical basis for functioning.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were discredited by the allopathic medicine, medical doctors, and pretty much wiped out this form of medicine, which you might say is more based on energy than physical substances. Um, so I think that's reflected. It's also reflective of our society that we have this medical model, and the more materialistic worldview and even physics in the 18th century and earlier was a more material view of the world, and industrialization, the industrial age was very much focused on materiality and improving our life through material change. And I feel like we're entering a new era where even physics is becoming less materialistic in its viewpoint as we look into subatomic particles, and the laws of physics seems to be acting at a large distance when there doesn't seem to be a connection between two subatomic particles. And I think physics is evolving to a place where it's more going to be aligning with not religion, which is based on beliefs and is anti-spiritual, but with a more spiritual understanding of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going beyond what you're saying about the medical model, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense to me why humans would want to invest in experiments where there's a mechanism of action that they can hypothesize, which is why I can understand a lot of the getting behind the allopathic model. And without necessarily myself taking a stance on some of these other modalities and models, because I only have limited experience with them, uh, it still strikes me as odd that one might not want to get curious about them. Like, there's probably a reason. Maybe it's not exact, but there's probably a reason some of these other healing modalities have survived through years. And if it works, it works. I mean, you can still do some kind of trial experiment and see what the result is. But it does seem like we've come to a time where that second one, where I don't know necessarily what the mechanism of action is has really gone. There's not much in terms of large scale experiments done, and where we could discover what works and what's true, and so much of it is in favor of, as you're saying, a known materialistic worldview. The I was going somewhere with this. I forgot what it is now. Um, but but even what you're saying with the psychedelics, which is this idea that you could give someone a psychedelic that essentially would wall off them having the experience, like
Yeah.
a bunch of fireworks would happen in the brain, but over here where the experience is revealed to the experiencer, like that, there's a wall here. Um, that to me is odd because I, for someone who has a materialistic worldview, it doesn't seem like a big stretch to me to say, hey, like there's something to having experience. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's odd. I find it fun,
Yeah,
almost
it's very,
funny in a way. Like,
yeah, I agree. I think without I don't know that I'd want to use any psychedelics without I mean, how can you have a change in the brain and not have that, an altered state of consciousness? And
it also seems like I would be concerned that it might create a sense of discontinuity in the user. Like if I take a psychedelic that doesn't have a psychedelic experience along with it, and then I just notice I'm a little different later on. Let's say it does work, and I'm a little different later
yeah,
on. There's a weird lack of continuity. Like I didn't have the experience that has me kind of feel how I got from one place to another.
yeah,
It's like waking up one day and you're in a village in India.
uh-huh. So I guess it's not so different than how we take medications for anxiety, and we take something and we're in a different experience, and suddenly it's just different. And my sense is that these companies, there's a proliferation of companies trying to patent now various psychedelics, and so I think someone just got the idea. Well, let's work on this and try to create this and make a lot of money.
Hmm.
Um, it's a kind of bizarre situation now with so many startup companies trying to patent various variations on these substances.
Yeah, there's a way in which it makes sense in where there's an alignment between the incentive for a patentable product and also a way to get around any taboos
Yeah,
that there may be from 50 years of legal
mhm,
restriction,
yeah,
as well as exploit those taboos or even try to create new taboos that would aim people in the direction of your patented medicine rather
mhm,
than the original substance or the more what I would think of. I know. I mean, I know it's not. It's a manufactured product, but still like a more natural substance or more natural experience.
mhm, yeah.